These are the hidden fees that turn a funeral from a manageable expense into a financial crisis, and most families never see them coming until they're already deep in grief. The death care industry in America generates billions of dollars every year, and a significant portion of that revenue comes from charges that never appear in the advertised price. Whether you choose cremation or burial, there's an entire architecture of additional costs designed to escalate your final bill, and we're going to expose every single one of them. Start with the big picture. The cremation rate in the United States has reached 63.4%. Burial sits at just 31.6%. 2015 is when cremation first edged ahead of burial. By 2045, projections show that number climbing to 82.3%. The reasons are primarily economic, because cremation simply costs less. But changing religious attitudes, environmental awareness, and the fact that Americans move more frequently and no longer maintain family cemeteries have all accelerated this shift. Even the cheaper option isn't as cheap as you'd think. A direct cremation, the simplest option with no service and no viewing, averages around $2,200 nationally. In lower-cost states like Alabama or Mississippi, you might pay as little as $800. In California, New York, or Massachusetts, expect $2,000 to $3,000. Add a full-service cremation with a memorial ceremony, and you are looking at up to $7,000. Burial runs steeper. The median cost of a funeral with viewing and burial lands at $7,848. Add a burial vault, and that median rises to $9,420. The realistic total for a traditional burial, including the cemetery plot, vault, and headstone, runs between $12,000 and $15,000. Hawaii tops the national list at $11,000, followed by New York at $10,800 and California at $10,600. Cremation can save you roughly $6,000, about 74% compared to burial. That's the headline number. Now, let us talk about what happens underneath it. Nearly every funeral bill includes a line item called Basic Services of Funeral Director and Staff. This is a flat fee, typically landing at $2,300 at the national median, covering the funeral director's overhead. The Federal Trade Commission permits this fee to be non-declinable. You cannot negotiate it away, and you cannot opt out. It appears on cremation invoices and burial invoices alike. Then there's the transfer of remains fee. One investigation uncovered a $795 charge to move a body from a hospital to a funeral home, a 12-mile drive. This fee is rarely disclosed up front, and it varies wildly between providers. Embalming is another trap. It typically runs at around $775, and many funeral homes present it as though it's required, when it almost never is. A closed casket service or a quick burial gives you every right to decline it and save hundreds of dollars. Refrigeration is a far less expensive alternative. Now, burial is where costs truly spiral. Cemetery opening and closing fees are entirely separate from the cost of the plot itself. In 2025, expect to pay between $1,000 and $2,500 just to have the grave opened and closed. At Forest Lawn in Los Angeles, that fee alone reaches $2,425. Want the burial on a Saturday? Add another $500. Weekend and holiday surcharges across the industry can tack on up to $800. And in major cities like New York, Los Angeles, or Boston, the opening and closing fee can exceed $3,000 by itself. The burial vault or grave liner comes next. No state law requires one, but most cemeteries do, And that is a distinction families rarely understand until it is too late. A vault or grave liner costs anywhere from $700 to $3,500, and in practice, it is not optional. Cemetery plots tell their own story of geographic inequality. The national average falls around $2,000 for a single grave at a public cemetery. Private and religious cemeteries charge up to $10,000 or more. In New York City, a standard single grave in a non-premium section runs up to $22,000. That is just the dirt. On top of the plot price, cemeteries charge a perpetual care fee, typically 10 to 18% of the plot cost, to maintain the grounds. It is non-negotiable. A simple granite headstone adds another $1,000, with larger or more personalized monuments climbing to $5,000 and beyond. And here is a new one: the digital surcharge. Some cemeteries now charge an archival fee to maintain online finding services and GPS-tagged grave markers. Even death has a subscription model now. Cremation carries fewer layered fees, but it's not immune. Some providers advertise starter prices that seem remarkably low, then add charges for hand delivery, removal of medical devices, and permit fees that used to be free. County coroners must issue a permit before cremation can proceed, and those costs are increasingly passed straight to consumers. What makes all of this worse is the industry structure itself. Service Corporation International, trading under the brand Dignity Memorial, is the largest funeral home and cemetery operator in North America. As large chains absorb independent funeral homes, competitive pricing pressure eases and costs rise. In Tucson, Arizona, when Angel Valley Funeral Home was sold to private equity-backed Foundation Partners Group, cremation prices jumped by $335 and burial costs rose by $645. In Mesa, Arizona, the sale of Lakeshore Mortuary to Service Corporation International pushed cremation costs up by $205 and burial costs up by $885. The federal government is supposed to protect consumers from the worst of these practices. The FTC funeral rule, enacted in 1984, requires funeral homes to provide itemized price lists and prohibits them from bundling services consumers don't want. But enforcement has been thin. Between 1996 and 2018, only about 500 funeral homes participated in the Funeral Rule Offenders Program, and the FTC inspected just 3,000 of the more than 20,000 funeral homes in the country. A deal between the FTC and the National Funeral Directors Association lets violators sidestep litigation and public exposure entirely. In January 2024, the FTC conducted its first undercover phone sweep, calling funeral homes to check compliance. 39 received warning letters, and the most common violation was simply refusing to answer price questions over the phone. As of 2026, funeral homes are still not required to post their prices online. So what can you actually do? You can buy a casket from anywhere. Online retailers and wholesale clubs sell them for 50 to 70% less than funeral homes. One investigation found a funeral home listing its cheapest casket at $2,195, while a virtually identical one was available online for $699 with overnight delivery. Funeral homes are legally required to accept it without a handling fee. Holding a service at a church, community center, or your own home instead of the funeral home chapel can save you several $100s in facility fees alone. Watch for cash advance markups too, because funeral homes sometimes add 10 to 30% above their actual cost on items like flowers, obituary postings, and clergy fees. If you're a veteran, you may qualify for burial in a national cemetery at no cost, a burial allowance of $2,000 or more, a headstone or marker, and a burial flag. And for those open to emerging alternatives, green burial, which skips embalming, vaults, and elaborate caskets, typically costs between $1,000 and $4,000. Human composting is now legal in 14 states. The death care industry counts on one thing above all else: that you'll be making these decisions during the worst moment of your life, when scrutinizing a bill feels impossible. Pre-need sales have climbed 22% as more families lock in today's rates before they're needed, and that might be the smartest financial move in this entire conversation, because the best time to understand these hidden fees is right now, while you still have the clarity to push back.